Hi, my name is Pieter Oomens, and I'm a writer. It sounds a little strange, at least to me, to introduce myself that way, because for more than 40 years I've introduced myself as Pieter Oomens, lawyer. As you can gather from my accent, I'm Australian, and I practiced law in Sydney, principally, but throughout Australia, for more than 40 years. I was a partner and ultimately managing partner of quite a large law firm. And after I retired from practice, I established a management consultancy in the area of legal business, legal firms. But all the time, my guilty secret was that I wanted to be a writer. And now I am. And all our yesterdays, inspired, naturally enough, or the quotation is inspired, naturally enough, from Macbeth. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools their way to dusty death. Macbeth had as its centre murder, although it was about a whole lot of other things, of course. And this book is a thriller about, well, maybe more than one murder. There the similarity ends, I'd have to confess. But let's go back to that quotation. That quotation is all about how the past bears upon the present. And in this instance, the central character, a writer, is charged with, or given the engagement to investigate the death, a mysterious death. And whilst he's investigating that, he thinks back to an earlier time, 20 years before, and how things occurred in that earlier investigation that are eerily similar to what occurs in the present investigation. Well, like I said, I had a guilty secret. I always wanted to be a writer, and I'd been nursing the idea of a writer being engaged to investigate a mysterious death. And I'd had that for some time as a fantasy, I suppose, about what would be the subject of a novel if I were to write one. I'd originally, in my original conception, I'd set the novel in Bali, a place I know fairly well. And then I thought, no, I'll end up being distracted by the scenery, and that will detract from the plotting and character development. And there I was, sitting on a balcony overlooking Manly Beach, one of the prettiest beaches in the world, in Sydney, looking through the Norfolk pines at the waves crashing, and I said to myself, well, if you don't start writing now, don't ever tell yourself you could have been a writer. So I started. The intellectual challenge is the short answer. This novel presented the most intriguing intellectual challenge that I've ever undertaken. The novel itself, or in preparing the novel, drafting the novel, I had no rigid plan. I had the beginning. I knew how that was going to occur. I didn't know how the end, or what the end would consist of. And then, after a little time, having started to introduce some characters onto the page, I began to conceive of how the thing might be drawn together so I could see the end. And what I presented myself with was this massive void. How was I going to get to that end? And that was really where the fun started. What else do I love about writing? Well, the fact is that the characters have their own part to play in the authorial work. That is, at times I felt like I was caught in some postmodernist trap as the characters in dialogue would begin to take the plot in directions I hadn't originally conceived of. I found that intriguing, and I actually put it to a couple of writers, and they said, yeah, that happens. The subconscious kicks in and you should take advantage of it. And that is, don't panic. You start with some ideas. You start with one or two characters, and you're in a rush because you're inspired. You've got this great idea, and you, at quite a pace, set things down. And then, suddenly, perhaps, you think, oh, hang on, what's going to happen next? It's at that point you don't panic. You write as fast as your imagination will allow you. Now, that may mean that there will be gaps. I know the aim is to try and write every day, but some days, at least for me, it was important to get away from the table and just walk and just think, why would somebody do this? Why would somebody react that way? And that's the final piece of advice I would give you. Ask lots of why questions, because you want characters to act in a way which is plausible, because otherwise you're not being entirely straight with the reader. And I think that it's critical, absolutely critical, that you present, if you're writing a realist work, of course, something where the characters act in a believable way. So ask yourself that why question. Assuming you're interested, I hope you're interested, where can you buy the book? It's to be released on the 21st of February 2023. You can pre-order it at Waterstones, Barnes & Noble, Hatchards, Foyles, WH Smith and Amazon. Just key in my name. I have to warn you, it's Dutch, notwithstanding my Australian accent. You'll need to spell it correctly, otherwise the search engine will just have a fit. Or you can put in the quote, I have respected Shakespeare's iambic pentameter and all our yesterdays. Thanks.